And welcome back. Our guest tonight is Mark Moreno. He is executive editor and chief correspondent for ClimateDepot.com, and he was recently dubbed the godfather of climate deniers. Definitely want to talk to him about that. He joins us now via Skype. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Now, Mark, you sent us this article by, I guess it's a blogger, Tom Nelson, and the headline is, UN Climate Hoax Chief Talks Openly About Bad Weather Preventing. Now, what is that all about?
Well, what's happening right now, there's a UN conference going on in Qatar in the Middle East. And what they're doing is they're actually trying to promote things like carbon taxes, climate treaties, and regulations in order to prevent bad weather. And this is something now we have Mayor Bloomberg in New York City doing this. We have President Obama, who actually said Americans can do something about floods, droughts, tornadoes, hurricanes at the ballot box by voting for him. We've reached an age, I like to say it's a primitive age, very similar to medieval witchcraft, where people think we can control the weather through acts of government. In the case of the medieval witchcraft, they thought you could burn witches at the stake after you had bad crops or crop failure or unseasonable weather or bad storms. I don't know that we've advanced scientifically since the witch burnings. And now to have the United Nations climate chief come out and talk about openly about how we can prevent bad weather from happening through taxes and regulations, this is a whole new low of global warming activists. And it's the same, the UN climate chief, Christina Figueres, if I'm saying her name correctly, is seeking, and this is an exact quote, a quote, centralized transformation that is going to make life for everyone on the planet very different. And she goes on and talks about a centralized policy perspective that's going to transform our way of life. And they've openly called for global governance. They've openly called for global carbon taxes. This, make no mistake about it, that's what the United Nations conference is about. It's not about science. It's not about global warming. It's about centralizing their power. And now the difference is, in 2012, they're talking more and more openly about it. Al Gore in 2009 said the climate bill in the United States was the first step toward global governance. And so this is it's a continuation of that. They're now openly admitting their goals.
Okay, now you talked about many things that I wanted to talk to you about. Let's start with carbon. Now, as far as this climate change, global warming, whatever they want to call it, I believe they switched from calling it just simply global warming to climate change because we've seen the planet get hotter and colder at various points in time. But as far as carbon, as far as their side, the Al Gore side, what role does carbon play as far as climate change?
Well, that's a very good question. Here's the bottom line. There are literally hundreds of factors that influence global temperature. Everything from tilt to the Earth's axis, to ocean cycles, to water vapor, to methane, to solar system, clouds, the sun, volcanic emissions, carbon dioxide. And what happens is that somehow in the late 1980s, there was a concerted effort when the United Nations formed this panel to try to blame carbon dioxide, not just as one of the hundreds of factors that contribute to climate change and to the global temperature, but as the driver, the tail that wags the dog, if you will. And there's no science that can support that contention. And what's happened since then is they've come out, and we've had 16 years of no warming, according to the latest data. That's one point. Secondly, they tried to claim modern temperatures were unprecedented. Well, now we have multiple peer-reviewed papers showing the medieval warm period was warmer than today, without benefit of our coal plants, of our SUVs, of our modern way of life. So nothing unprecedented has happened. Carbon dioxide may be a player in climate, but it's probably a minor player, and you can't distinguish the effects from natural variability. That's what the science is showing. And that's what the science is showing across the board, whether you're talking about sea level, Mount Kilimanjaro, polar bears, global temperatures, even the Arctic ice, which is their poster child. You know, NASA admitted that was a huge cyclone storm that broke up the ice this year, and it actually had recovered somewhat from its lower point in 2007. And we're also showing the Arctic ice was as lower at different points during the 20th century. Meanwhile, the South Pole, the Antarctic, has been growing. So if you look around the globe, nothing alarming is going on, but they'll come out and tell you it's worse than we thought. And they say that because as there's nothing alarming going on, they ramp up scarier and scarier predictions of 50 to 100 years from now. And then they say it's worse than we thought because our predictions are scarier than we thought earlier. And so it's a silly game they play. But the bottom line is we have major scientists reversing themselves. People like James Lovelock, who was a huge global warming alarmist, said there would only be a few breeding couples left in the Arctic in 2007. Fast forward to 2012, he's now saying they don't have the physics worked out. This has become a religion. Al Gore is wrong. So they're losing major scientists on their side.
Exactly. Now, we just had an article up on the screen. Now, I don't know about global, climate change all around the world. I can just speak for what I've personally witnessed, and I have an article here from my hometown. We'll put it on the screen for our viewers. This is from my very own Tulsa World, and it says new Tulsa weather records again. Now, this was from earlier this year where it talks about high temperatures. It says Tulsa's highest temperature skyrocketed to 112 degrees. Now, although to say that it is climate change, and yes, the planet is getting hotter, we have another article right here. This was from 2011. So we go from 2012, where we had the highest high of 112 degrees. But in 2011, in my hometown, we had the highest snowfall, which was 26.1 inches. And the previous record was 25.6 inches back in 1923. So we're saying that you can't have one and ignore the other. They're saying that the planet's getting warmer, it's getting hotter, but they're completely ignoring the other side when we see, yes, it may have peak periods of heat, but we also have peak periods of cold, because it doesn't really snow that much in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, what they will say now, and Al Gore has said this, the New York Times has gone, whenever we have a blizzard record cold, they now say that's consistent with global warming. That's extreme weather. In fact, what they've done is they're trying to declare 2012 a year of extreme weather. Why? Because we had a lot of mild days in March. A lot of people went out and said, hey, this is great weather. Well, guess what? That's now, according to the United States government, extreme weather. That's going to be classified as dangerous extreme weather. It's silly. In terms of the heat wave, yeah, we had a hot summer in parts of the United States, the continental United States, and at least most of the continental United States. And the United States makes up about 2% or less than 2% of the Earth's surface. At the same time, we were having this heat wave. This is global warming. This is an indication of global warming. South Africa was having record cold. Other parts of the globe and Australia were having a record cold or really cold winter, breaking records in South America. So the bottom line is you can't look at 2% of the globe or less, make extrapolations, try to say it fits your theory. The problem we have now is they literally have studies predicting more snow in the winter, predicting less snow in the winter, predicting more drought, predicting more floods, predicting less drought. So no matter what the weather event is, they can claim, hey, we predicted it. That's called unfalsifiable. You can't falsify the science because they're covered no matter what they do. That's why I call it climate astrology, or we call it tabloid climatology. This is like a fortune teller where they give out all these different scenarios, and a stopped clock is right twice a day. Twice a day. So what's happened here is no matter the weather event, they claim it's consistent. When you say global warming will cause many bad things, and then guess what? Many bad things happen. Well,
Exactly.
Many bad things happen no matter what. But now it fits their theory. That's not science. That's bias, confirmation bias. And it's gotten to the point where it's silly. You hate to even have to argue, but people are actually gullible, and there's true believers out there that actually believe. They'll say things like, this isn't the climate I grew up with. Well, you know what? The climate's always changing. If you lived in the Arctic, it was as warmer in the 1930s and 40s as it is now. Then they went through a 40-year cooling period. Then they warmed again. What's your point? The climate never stays the same. So the idiotic statements like, I've never seen weather like this. Well, it's like, well, right. How old are you given the Earth's history? It's just silliness. But this is their new argument because they've lost the argument on CO2 being the dominant driver of man-made global warming. They've lost the argument on sea level. They've lost the argument on a whole host. In fact, on my Climate Depot, my website, I have a report on the A to Z, how their predictions are failing. The real-world data is defying the man-made global warming movement.
Now, as far as you're being dubbed the godfather of climate change skeptics, how did that come about, and how do you take that? Do you take that personally? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's funny. I'm Italian, so they like to use those kind of ethnic stereotypes. But the bottom line is I take it as a backhanded compliment. This was a smear piece on me in a German magazine called Die Zeit, or however you say it, D-I-E-Z-I-D-E-I-T. My German's not very good. And they did a butcher job. I mean, they mixed up the timeline of when I worked in the Senate Environmental Committee. They had me bringing in Michael Crichton before I even started in the committee. They made up stuff about where I live, about, even down to the garden in my backyard. They tried to get it very personal, came up with just absurd stuff. So I'm having fun with this. these reporters from Germany did a preconceived piece. They smeared all skeptics by calling us deniers. And they're basically trying to say that we're lavishly funded, which is the biggest joke you could ever imagine when you consider the United Nations, foundations, the U.S. taxpayer dollars, international world governments, all going to support man-made global warming, not because it's science, but because it gives politicians more control, more levers of regulation. It gives the international bean counters a chance to control our lives. That's what they're after. That's what this movement is about. It's a political movement, not scientific. So this German magazine, I take it as a compliment, called me the godfather of climate denial, in their words, which conjures up, of course, Holocaust denial. They like to do that to try to smear us.
Right.
Is backfiring on them, and we're having a lot of fun with it.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad you didn't take it personal. Now, talking about your funding, they say that you're overfunded and you got all this money rolling in. How much money does Al Gore stand to make if these things go through, these carbon taxes?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Al Gore, back in 2007-8, before Obama was elected, would go around and say, now, these are the companies, he did his PowerPoint, these are the companies I would invest in, that I am investing in, all these renewable energy companies and electric car companies. Guess what happens? Obama wins in 2008. Secretary Chu comes in, and guess what? I don't know the number, but I think it's about $2.5 billion of federal taxpayer stimulus dollars went to companies that Al Gore touted and was involved in and had connections with or was on the board with. Al Gore went from less than $2 million net worth when he left the vice presidency to now more than $100 million. He's called the world's first carbon billionaire. He's on his way to getting there. So that is one angle. One United States Department of Agricultural farm grant to study how farm odors contribute to global warming of $20 million exceeded all the money that ExxonMobil was ever accused of giving to global warming skeptics, something like $16 or $18 million. And so what has happened here, Al Gore alone pledged to spend $300 million promoting man-made climate fears. The U.S. government has spent tens of billions of dollars in research, and more than that when you look at all the stimulus and all the money they put into things like Solandra and electric car companies and wind, all these companies that have gone belly up, all to save us from global warming, allegedly save us.
Exactly. We have an article right here. This is from the Daily Mail. Climate change deniers will be despised just like racist of the day. Yeah, I'm sure you heard this, Al Gore saying that climate deniers are the new racists, which I don't know how he can claim such thing. I don't think anybody's ever been lynched for, denying climate change or whatever else. We also have another one here from Al Gore. Al Gore's profanity-filled rant against climate change naysayers. It seems like he's kind of cracking up over this.
He is. Now, here's what's going on with Al Gore. This is an amazing transformation. He went, of course, from losing the presidency to relative obscurity, to then rising again with his film, wins the Oscar, wins the Nobel, and then he thinks he's riding high, he thinks they're going to have a climate bill, he thinks they're going to have a UN treaty, and then everything collapses under the weight of the ClimateGate scandal, the science being exposed back in 2009, 2010, and then President Obama never showed that much interest in UN treaties and never even pushed the climate bill. So a lot of the environmentalists are mad at him for not pushing more. But Al Gore now is reduced to doing internet telethons claiming every weather event is linked to man-made global warming. And the last one he did just a few weeks ago didn't even garner any media coverage in the usual suspects of the media. Al Gore is being ignored by the liberal mainstream media now, and that's got to be devastating to him. He's still got a boatload of money, and he's still and I don't argue that Al Gore is necessarily motivated by money. He is a true believer. He's an ideologue. This is what he does, and I think he's also a very shrewd businessman, and he knows how to channel billions of dollars into his companies, and he's obviously very wealthy. But in terms of his political impact, he is falling off the map in terms of politics.
Now, as far as those who may be on the fence, they hear what you say, they hear what Al Gore says. What would you say to somebody who's, straddling the fence, trying to find the right and true information?
Well, I would say go to climatedepot.com. That's my website. I was in the former staff of the U.S. Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, and I was author of the 1,000 Scientists Dissent. We started the first counter assault. I worked with Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma against Al Gore back in 2007. we started collecting the names of skeptical scientists from around the world. I mean, we had people like Al Gore, the head of the United Nations Climate, telling people there were only a dozen skeptical scientists in the world. There were as many as there were people who believed the Earth was flat. So that enraged all these scientists. They came out and they started contacting the United States Senate, and we put this report together, and we came back. So what I would argue is go to Climate Depot, read the material. I link to both sides. I have Al Gore articles. I have articles from global warmists like Think Progress and Real Climate. You can read both sides, but start looking at the data, I would tell you, and even the government sources that are so bought and paid for by this. You know, we have NASA run by James Hansen, a global warming scientist who's been arrested 2 or 3 times protesting energy pipelines. He's actually been handcuffed by police and hauled off. This is how strongly he believes. James Hansen endorsed a book calling for the deindustrialization of the United States, a book that called for raising United States cities and leveling dams. This is our lead scientist at global warming at NASA that keeps our temperature data. So much for disinterested scientists. Take this, once you scratch the surface of this, you will be shocked and amazed at how science has virtually nothing to do with this entire movement.
Exactly. Closing comments, Mark Moreno.
Well, right now, the United Nations is meeting in the Middle East, in Qatar, or Qatar. I always say Qatar. I guess it's now called Qatar. And they are going to be trying to resurrect, now that Obama's won re-election, resurrect a global treaty and a global carbon tax. The real threat Americans face, and they won't even see it coming. We were able to stop Congress from passing a ridiculous climate bill. But right now, Obama's EPA is poised to start regulating everything that Congress refused to do. They're going to regulate behind the scenes, an unelected bureaucracy, start regulating carbon. We inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. And what's going to happen is the EPA, behind the scenes, is going to be shutting down coal plants, putting on fines, regulations.
Oh, that's not behind the scenes.
Well, what I'm saying is it's not going to be a vote of Congress. People aren't going to be aware of it initially. It's going to start happening. We're going to look at, as President Obama openly said, your electricity bills will necessarily skyrocket. That's one of the promises he will keep. And this is something we have a problem because we have I'll just say it, a piss-poor, weak Republican leadership, both in the Senate and the House right now. I don't see them even capable, let alone have the will, of fighting President Obama on this.
Exactly. Well, there he is, the godfather of climate change skeptics, Mark Moreno. Definitely appreciate your time today, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks. All right. And that's it for this edition of the InfoWars Nightly News. Definitely want to thank Mark Moreno and also John McAfee. That's something I was definitely surprised to see. But anyway, if you like guests like Mark, take a look at prisonplanet.tv. There's a lot of great stuff on there. Always a 15-day free trial. Check it out. Share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. Holiday time is a great time. You can get people there, sit them down, just watch 15 minutes of this movie, The Obama Deception, or Endgame, or whatever the case may be. It's a great way to wake people up. And also check out Planet InfoWars. There's plenty of good stuff on there. You can connect with other patriots, much like yourself. Many sections you can ask Alex questions, so definitely be aware of that. And don't forget, right now, we are running the ProPure 15% off. So if you want to get your ProPure, a lot of people had a demand for it. The special ends December 10th. A lot of people missed out last time, so don't miss out this time. Get your ProPure now, 15% off. We even got them here at the office. Melissa just bought one. I'll get one myself, so definitely make sure that you don't miss out. I'm Jakari Jackson for the InfoWars Nightly News, and we'll see you next time.